我确实是88年的，没有结婚也没有男朋友，但是我是985院校硕士毕业。
I was indeed born in 1988, and to this day, I'm still unmarried and don't have a boyfriend. But it's not like I have nothing. On the contrary, I'm a graduate with a master's degree from a 985 university, I own my own house and car, and I come from a complete family with warm and loving relatives. Since I was young, I've always been someone who lives by her own efforts, pursuing independence and dignity. I am not some resource that can be casually placed on a shelf for men to pick and choose from. What pains me the most might really be because of my age. Many men, upon hearing that I'm in my 30s, immediately lose interest in truly spending time to get to know me, to understand me, to be willing to invest energy in interacting with me, communicating with me, let alone talking about love. Last year, I went on 31 blind dates in total, but none of them worked out. It's not that my standards are too high, honestly, it's because so many men nowadays are just not normal. Without exception, none of them were truly willing to spend time sincerely pursuing me. At most, they'll say something like a passerby, suddenly blurting out, "I'm willing to marry you, are you willing to marry me?" As if I were just a tool desperate to get married, and as long as a man asks, I should immediately nod and agree. But do I really look like someone that cheap, that easy to take away? Their so-called love, when spoken aloud, is often just focused on whether I can still have children, whether I can still serve as a uterus resource for them to reproduce. In their eyes, I seem not to be a complete human being with thoughts, emotions, and life experiences. I want to ask, when you say you like someone, can you pause and think, this lovely woman in front of you, what is she thinking about? What she needs is understanding, respect, and a genuine emotional connection, not some casual weightless "will you marry me?"
就是不是我们女的现在是嫁不出去，是你们很多男的都不正常，真的。
Actually, right now I really want to say one thing. It's not that we women can't get married nowadays, it's that so many men today are honestly just not normal. You always think that once a woman gets older, she should be anxious, should lower her standards, should be willing to marry anyone who comes along, but that's simply not the case. It's not that we don't have suitors, or that no one is introducing us to people, it's that the men we meet are truly beyond words. Let me share a recent matchmaking experience I had myself. The guy was introduced to me by my bestie. At the time, I was quite confident about this setup, since he was personally recommended by someone I trust the most. So I added the guy on WeChat, and we started chatting for a few days. Actually, during the chat, everything seemed pretty normal. The conversation was polite, and the pace felt just right. After about a week, he suggested that we meet in person and have a meal to get to know each other better. I thought that was fine and agreed. We arranged to meet at a Chinese restaurant in Wanda Plaza. That day, I even arrived more than 20 minutes early on purpose. Since I still had some time, I decided to go downstairs and buy 2 cups of coffee for us, thinking that handing him a cup later would be a nice gesture and show some sincerity. In the end, I waited nearly 20 minutes before he finally strolled in. And the first thing out of his mouth was, "Ugh, why are there so many people? I don't even want to eat here." His tone was cold and impatient, which left me stunned on the spot. Although I felt very uncomfortable, I didn't argue. I just silently handed him the coffee. Since I had already picked up the queue number in advance, it didn't take long before our turn came. After we sat down, I said, "You go ahead and order first, see if there's anything you like." He waved his hand and said he had never been to this restaurant before and told me to just order whatever. So I randomly chose 2 home-style dishes, one was kung pao chicken, and the other was some kind of stir-fried greens, I don't remember clearly. He then added 3 more dishes himself, so overall it turned out to be a pretty hearty meal. During the meal, I didn't eat much, and he even asked, "Why are you eating so little?" I replied that I usually don't eat a lot. He didn't ask any more questions. Later, he finished all the remaining dishes by himself. After the meal, he started playing on his phone, head down, not saying a word. The QR code for payment was right next to him, so I thought maybe he would scan and pay in a moment. But he kept playing on his phone, I could hear the familiar sound effects of some online game. Before we ate, we had agreed to go watch a movie afterward. I had been quite looking forward to it. So I said, "Shall we go watch the movie now that we've finished eating?" Without even lifting his head, he muttered, "Why did you eat so little? You should eat more. You know you're paying, right? Not eating much isn't worth it." I was completely stunned. I was truly shocked inside. This meal was your idea, you invited me to eat, and now you expect me to pay for it? And with that kind of attitude? After that, I didn't say another word. I was boiling inside but stayed calm on the surface. I quietly reached over to grab the payment code next to him, scanned it with my phone. The total was about 160 yuan. By that point, I had no interest in watching a movie with him anymore. I calmly said, "Something came up on my end, I'll head off first. Let's reschedule the movie." I turned around and left without even saying goodbye. It's not that I care about the cost of this meal, I can afford 160 yuan, and I'm not upset about the money. What I care about is your attitude and respect as a man during a matchmaking date. It's fine if you don't take the initiative to pay, but it's not okay to so casually toss the responsibility away. You let the woman pay for the first date? And mind you, I also bought the coffee. I didn't say anything about that either. I don't want to preach any grand principles, I just want to say this one thing. It's really not that we women can't get married, it's that there are no normal men anymore.
我的结婚要求呢，就是对方必须要有500万的存款。
I'm 39 years old this year, 1.7 meters tall, and belong to the well-known category of older, high-quality but unmarried women. My marriage standards, to be honest, aren't that high, but I do have one very clear, non-negotiable condition. The man must have 5 million yuan in savings. You might ask, why did I previously only require 390,000 yuan, but now suddenly raise it to 5 million? There's actually a reason for that. Yesterday, I had an argument with my boss over something, and now I'm very likely to be fired. In other words, I'm about to become an unemployed person with no source of income. Considering my future life plans and sense of security, of course I have to raise the bar a bit in terms of marriage requirements. Because after I lose my job, eating, drinking, daily expenses, social activities, and possibly future child-rearing costs, all of these things require money. If the man I'm with can't even support me, then what's the point of marrying him? I'm not the kind of woman who places a lot of importance on a man's appearance or height. Whether you're handsome or tall, I don't really care that much. But I at least need to see that you have a certain level of financial capability, right? Even if you're not expected to fully support me, you should at least have the ability to prepare financially for our future family life. If we want to have children later, raising them will be an even bigger expense. That's why I say, without 5 million yuan in basic savings, it's almost impossible to sustain married life. Of course, it's not like I haven't thought about finding another job. But reality is just that harsh. I'm already 39 years old, well beyond the age limit set by most companies' hiring requirements. I've looked at many job listings. Almost all of them only recruit people aged 20 to 35. Honestly, it's not that I think I'm old, it's just a fact. Women in my age group really struggle to find suitable job opportunities. Let me say it again. I'm not saying I'm old, okay? Besides, I'm a highly educated woman with a doctoral degree. I can't possibly take jobs like street cleaning or restaurant waitressing just to survive, right? How would my parents save face? They worked so hard to raise a daughter with a PhD. I used to have a decent job, earning over 20,000 yuan a month. Life was manageable. My previous monthly expenses, including buying clothes, shopping and eating out with girlfriends, traveling, cosmetics, handbags, were around 19,000 yuan, so I still had a bit of savings left each month. I'm a woman who really knows how to manage money and live smart. I have both the awareness and the ability to save. So, if you're willing to provide 5 million yuan in savings before marriage, I will manage that money properly, using it as future security for retirement and our children's growth. And I also hope my partner will hand over his monthly salary to me. It's not that I'm money hungry, it's just that I have no job and no income source. If you don't give me money, I won't even be able to maintain a basic life. As a husband, if you can't even take care of your wife, shouldn't you ask yourself if that's something to be ashamed of? So I think this request is not excessive, it's reasonable and necessary. Having a beautiful, well-shaped, highly educated PhD woman managing your home, isn't that a blessing for you?
问题比大家想象的还要严重。
The problem of being single in China today is far more serious than most people imagine. Those who can get married have already settled down early, while the ones left behind are often the type that just can't get married. And today, we're going to talk about a typical example of an excellent but divorced older leftover woman, spotted by a netizen at the matchmaking corner in Lianhuashan Park, Shenzhen. After seeing her list of partner requirements, you'll understand why there are so many older leftover women in China today. This woman was born in 1990 and is 35 years old this year. She's divorced and raises 2 children on her own. Currently, she works as a food delivery rider and earns about 5,500 yuan per month. She has an introverted personality. This combination of conditions inevitably conjures up a picture of her life. Not so bad that she has no redeeming qualities, but rather, whoever marries her is likely to be the unlucky one. Think about it. In a big city like Shenzhen, earning just 5,000 yuan a month while raising 2 children basically qualifies as a special hardship household. Some people might even feel the urge to donate when they see her. If she stood in front of me, I might just pull out 20 yuan and hand it to her. However, brothers, while sympathy is fine, once you take a look at her partner requirements, you'll probably understand why she got divorced in the first place. She was very clear. She wants to find a little fresh meat born between 1998 and 2000. In other words, she's 35, but her target is a 27-year-old guy. Wanting a younger man is understandable, but that's not the end of it. She also demands that the man must earn at least 20,000 yuan per month and have a stable job. If you think that's already outrageous, you're wrong, there's more. She also requires the man to be mature, steady, and assertive. Sounds like a personality trait, right? But in reality, mature and steady means he must have a solid financial foundation. Assertive means he must love her unconditionally and completely devote himself to her. Then there's this line, willing to quietly contribute to the family. Translation: the man has to willingly take care of her and her 2 children, and hand over all his earnings for them to spend. Finally, she said, best if he has a house in Shenzhen. For those of you experienced in matchmaking, you know full well that this best does not mean optional, but is actually a veiled must. If she were really okay with the man not owning a house, she would say, I don't require a house. But since she used best, it clearly implies that she cannot accept a man without a house. Many people hear this and think it's similar, but the intention is completely different. Some people might think, this woman is just too ridiculous. How could anyone possibly meet her standards? But let me be responsible and tell you, women like this who list out all kinds of outrageous demands make up 80% of the dating market. Yes, you heard that right, 80%. The very reason they're at matchmaking corners is because their demands are too high to meet in real life. Women with reasonable standards who understand reality probably make up only about 20% of the dating market. To be honest, as long as a woman doesn't have high demands, there's immediately someone willing to marry her. This is not an exaggeration. I'm not saying all this to mock anyone, but to get everyone to seriously reflect on the problems in the dating market. I also hope more women can wake up to reality sooner, instead of regretting it when it's already too late. To all the older leftover women out there, stop thinking it's just that you haven't met the perfect man yet. Let me be real with you. Even if you meet him, you probably won't be worthy of him. You might think you're in good condition, but he may not even look your way. We're all being dragged by our desires while chasing money and material things, forgetting what true happiness is. In the end, many people spend their lives in disappointment and pain. If you truly see life for what it is, you'll actually learn to appreciate the people and things around you more, and live a steadier and happier life.
Never rush into marrying those so-called leftover women. Among this group, quite a few are actually extremely double-standard inside and emotionally indifferent. As they age, men tend to gradually lower their standards for choosing a partner, becoming more realistic and tolerant. But in contrast, some women do the opposite. The older they get, the higher their standards become, to the point of being utterly unreasonable. They're used to taking those high-quality men who were once attracted to them in their 20s, during their peak of beauty, as the starting point and minimum standard now. Yet they have no awareness that what made them attractive back then was nothing more than their youth. And now, even though they're over 30 or nearing 40, they still demand others to meet those same past standards, not only without lowering them, but becoming even more demanding. Being in a relationship with such women is actually an exhausting experience. They tend to fuss over trivial matters in daily life, are emotionally unstable, extremely pragmatic and utilitarian toward others, yet full of unrealistic fantasies about themselves. They demand a great deal of financial investment from the man, while also expecting him to bear immense emotional responsibility and life pressure. So, smart men all know exactly what kind of women to choose. What do you think about these leftover women with increasingly outrageous partner standards? Feel free to share your honest opinion in the comments section. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. See you in the next video.